Good morning and welcome to Top Trades. It's Tuesday. It's April 29th. Spring has sprung here in Baltimore, lovely Baltimore. We got pollen hitting us in the face. But more importantly, we got Top Trades. I'll give a quick rundown of what we've got on the call today because we're going to get deep into some trades here. And the other thing is, you guys have been doing well at the trading desk, Gunner. I've been peeping on some of your trades, and you guys are looking good in the last couple of weeks. It's been a weird market, ups and downs, but you've been doing good. So one of the topics we want to cover, and this is straight from Gunner earlier this morning, are we in the calm after the storm, or are we in the eye of the hurricane? And that's very real. I think everyone's feeling that. This tariff storm, is it over? Or are we just in this little break and it's going to get crazy? Because we even had fireworks. We were listening to Basent and the White House this morning. They're coming at Amazon pretty hard. So it's getting very interesting, and we want to get your take on it, Gunner. The other thing, in case you're wondering, it's earnings season, and this is a big week. We've got the calendar. We want to share that with everyone because I know personally I'm someone that gets sort of sideswiped by earnings every now and then. I'm like, oh, I forgot that company that I hold or whatever. Sometimes there was Palantir. I was holding Palantir all those times, and sometimes I wouldn't even realize it was earnings. So we'll go run down. We'll show the picture. What do we have coming up? What are the big ones? What should you keep on your radar? So we'll cover that stuff. Like I said earlier, I want to do a little bit of a portfolio review for Gunner and the trading desk. You guys have been lights out the last few weeks. You've found some quick hit trades. I want to pick your brain on the strategy that you're using because we've talked about this a bunch of different times over the years in these top trade calls and different calls that we've done where you've got a great mentality where you're sort of layering stuff. I don't know if we want to go into the baseball analogy, like waiting for the pitch and knowing the count and all that stuff, or just where we layer it down. But we want to get into your mindset. How are you finding these trades? How can the people at home do it themselves? Plus, it's top trades, so we want to look at some charts. You've got all sorts of things to look at, the Rigettis of the world, the Lunars of the world, the gold, silver trades, crypto, everything. We've got it all in store here on Top Trades. So Gunner, take it away. What does everyone need to know this morning?
Well, they need to know, can you follow up on Chris's blockbuster appearance last week? Everybody seemed to be really excited to see Chris.
Everyone around the office told me I got replaced, basically. They're like, Matt, you're out. There's this new guy that's way better. And we know Chris has been around for a while. And we know because me and Gunner talk to him all the time. That man is electric. Love Chris. And he's got trades galore. I will say, you brought this up, so now I have to talk more. Last year, he had a lot of 10X trades personally, right?
Yep.
Someone else on this call had multiple 10X trades as well. This guy. Okay? Personally. So I'm coming back at him somehow. I gotta get it all together. Otherwise, I'm just fundamental Matt. There's like cool Chris, or like whatever, capital gains Chris, whatever you want to call him. And then there's fundamental Matt. I gotta step it up. So back at you. What do we got? What else do we have going on?
All right, fair enough. Well, like you said, I mean, we do have to figure out where we are in this market right now. And I think it's going to reveal itself sooner rather than later, because SPY is right back here to the scene of the crime at 550. And this is where it broke down back in March and early April, right here. I mean, we had the first drift lower, and then we had Liberation Day here just start ripping us apart into those lows earlier this month. So we've climbed back up. Volatility is down, right? We haven't seen those huge swings, these huge back and forth swings that we were getting back here on the 7th and 8th and into the week of the 21st last week when we had that big drop on Monday. We've recovered and we really haven't gone down since then. We've had some big moves higher, but now to start this week, today is awfully quiet despite the White House press briefing this morning that got a little interesting, we'll say. Yesterday was super quiet. The market dipped a little bit, but then closed right around break even. And so to me, it feels like everyone's kind of holding their breath and waiting to see what these mags say during earnings, and this is the Earnings Whispers calendar that we like to pull up from Twitter right here. So we have, after the close today, some biggies, but not really. We have Visa, Starbucks, Snap, First Solar, a couple others. But I think the action really starts tomorrow after the close with Microsoft and Meta, Robinhood to a lesser extent. And then we have Amazon, which caught some, I guess, stray bullets, maybe you could say, from the presser this morning. And then we have Apple, Airbnb, Reddit. Reddit's a big new stock that everybody is watching. Big Bear AI, if that's one you're trading right now, because that one's been on a tear recently. That's bounced. I know Chris mentioned it last week. So we have all those coming up on Wednesday and Thursday, and I feel like it's not so much the earnings. It's not going to be the numbers. It's going to be the conference calls. Everybody's going to want to see what management says about tariffs and expectations and everything moving forward, and how doom and gloom they are. And who's going to be pulling guidance? Is it too soon for them to be pulling guidance? What's Amazon going to say in response to what the White House said about them this morning? I think all of that is going to be in focus for the market, and I don't think it's any coincidence that we're back to the scene of the crime right here in SPY. Like I said, right here around 550. This is the last stretch of this drawdown right here, where it's either we turn south and we chop along or retest those lows. Down here around 480, we'll probably undercut. I think if we go down there lower, I would assume that we would undercut these lows at least by a little bit, maybe down in 480s, 470s. Or is this going to be a case where we start eating away at this area and try to claw back up to 570 in that 200-day moving average and see how it reacts from there? So it's going to get a little hairy, and I think there's going to be some false moves maybe, in this area. But at the same time, this is the spot that everybody's watching. This is all very obvious, so there's a ton of eyeballs on this. You don't have to be a chart wizard to see where the line in the sand is, right here. It's a very, very obvious spot that we're just sort of perched at right now, and the market's not doing much, and we're just sort of waiting and seeing what's going to happen.
Yeah. And I think we're waiting and seeing, and you guys are doing a good job of pointing them out, sort of the new class of stocks, whether call it rotation or whatever, but trying to find out in this weird up and down what's working and what can continue to work. Because I think it's going to happen. James Altucher said it in a call a few weeks ago, but he was, whatever it was, the uncertainty index, whatever that index was like all-time highs. It's like, really, this is more uncertain than March 2020. No way. 2008. No way. .com. No way. So it's, if you've kept your wits about you, well, like looking at this chart right now, if you've kept your wits about you through April at home, you're doing a good job. I don't think this market is more uncertain than those markets. I completely agree with James. So I think it's a matter of locking in on finding the new class of winners. So what do you like? What else is flashing on your screen right now that you're keeping an eye on that might be in that new class, Gunner?
Well, if you're talking about new class of winners, I think it's some of the stuff that we have trades on right now, actually. I know we have shorter term trades on them, and we got caught up in some of this volatility because we put these two trades in Uber and Roblox on before Liberation Day and before the market got torn down. And yet both of those trades have clawed their way back. And both of those stocks are a lot stronger than a lot of the mags that we're seeing. They're stronger than a lot of the other big tech stocks, a lot of the semiconductors. It feels like, and, I don't know how much this is going to, carry over into more normal market conditions, but it feels like the semiconductor trade is sort of dead in the water. It's gone virtually nowhere for a year now. NVIDIA, you can argue this is a big top. You can argue this is just consolidation. I don't want to get into all that. It's irrelevant to us as traders right here. But I mean, you can see NVIDIA is right back to where it was back in May of 2024. We've had a lot of movement, but a whole lot of nothing as far as gains go from NVIDIA here. And that was the only stock people talked about last year. And now, after this tariff shock, if you want to call it that, I think the market needed to correct beforehand and was correcting beforehand. And the tariffs just exacerbated that issue. We have a new class of potential leaders. And I think Uber is probably one of them. I mean, this chart looks a lot different than a lot of the mags that went straight down. It's pushing back up here. I think 80 is a big number for Uber that it's kind of working on. It snuck above this number last Friday, and it ultimately failed and went back into its range. If this can poke its head up and get into the mid 80s right here, I feel like this is going to resolve this consolidation, this big wide consolidation here is going to resolve to the upside. And Uber is, one of your big potential future mag stocks that really rolls and goes higher from here. So while we're probably not going to make a ton of money on our Uber trade just due to this, like if we zoom in here, we got in on this little breakout here thinking we would go higher, and this is Liberation Day and taking us down. It didn't go down as much as the rest of the market. That's a great I mean, I guess that's a great door prize, but it doesn't really change the fact that we're not going to make a ton of money on this trade because we had a 18% dip that we had to, claw back from, and time isn't on our side right now. However, I like this stock on all time frames, and I think it's going to be a good buy throughout the year. I think it's going to be one of those stocks we can dip back into and trade multiple times, kind of like how we did with Robinhood last year. You find these stocks that are in these really powerful uptrends, and Robinhood was definitely one of them. I mean, we saw this massive breakout. Yes, it was volatile at some points, but it was a great trading stock too. So you have these stocks that are producing huge long-term gains, but they're also setting up, and they're very much predictable on shorter time frames. You can swing trade the hell out of them, multiple times. I think we traded Robinhood maybe 4 or 5 times, last year, and I think all of them but one were really, really successful trades because we know how the stock behaves. We know it's a big winner. We know that uptrend is intact, and we can just grab on for the ride when it sets up and then sell it at its highs, sell it on strength, and then dip right back into the trade. And that's how I'm looking at Uber in this particular market. And I think Roblox has the same type of potential. We're sitting on modest gains on Roblox, but if you look at this thing, this is a massive base right here. This is one of those stocks that obviously was totally clobbered during the 2022 bear market. Nobody wanted to touch this thing, and I think with good reason. I mean, you had this big grinding bear market where all these tech growth names were getting, chopped up, and, the rising rate environment didn't do them any favors. But this was hot out of the gate as an IPO, was up in the 130s, and then traded down to a low of $20. And it's been setting up this big base ever since then. And not only did we get the nice base breakout on that post-election run, but we had a really good reset down here, reset back to this area that was where the 200-day moving average is colliding with that horizontal area that used to be resistance and is now acting as support, and it's springboarding off of that number right there. I think this could be a big surprise winner this year that a lot of people kind of left for dead because, buying it down in here, it was hell. It was a total nightmare. I mean, we're talking about like going from the 40s into the 20s, just constantly bouncing around trying to find its range. But it's been building since the middle of last year. And then we targeted this big breakout right here. We got the bounce from there. We'll be able to book modest gains in this, but I think this is going to be another one of those stocks that's going to be a good trader, in the months ahead, especially if it catches and, it really captures the imagination of people. I don't think Uber and Roblox are going to be too put off by any tariff issues either. I think they're kind of, I don't want to say immune, but they're less susceptible to the swings from tariffs that some of these bigger multinationals would have. So I like the looks of both these longer term.
Yeah. And when you look at the charts, like Uber and Hood, and I have Uber, I pulled that personally. I don't have Hood, but no, I might have Hood. I think I have Hood. When you look at those, it's just they seem like they're bucking trends every day. Yeah. You have a watch list or you have a list. It's like they seem to be green when others are red. They're a little bit stronger. They're not falling as much. It's just a really nice looking trade. And Roblox seems like the same thing. Gunnar, why not? We might as well do a pop quiz for you. What do you think a hot game on Roblox is for 8-year-olds?
A hot game on Roblox?
Yeah, hot game.
See, it's funny. I'm a Roblox shareholder who has never used Roblox before because my girls aren't into it. My boy's a little young for video games. So
are you ready for it?
I have no idea.
You build this house, or you get a little house, right? There's this little Lego looking house. And then it goes on this conveyor belt and it rolls down a hill. And then it just sort of breaks apart. And then you I don't know, you either win or lose. So that's what, my son is into that game. He's building these little houses and then they roll down this hill and it just falls apart. And then it's like, I don't know, it's like a house in space. I can't tell. Anyway, kids are into it though. And if they have some sort of a business plan that can figure the stuff out, because you can pay money and all these things. He doesn't, right, but you can. So it's sticky. All the kids like it. It's kind of like Crocs a couple years ago. We were like, those are dumb shoes. And then all of a sudden you're like, uh-oh, all the kids are wearing them. And they're everywhere. I think Roblox is one of those things. That's why it's got a base. It's the charts telling the truth there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely an interesting play, and I think it's also I think also it's not just interesting because of that, but I think it's because everybody wrote them off, a while ago, and they're like, this is nothing, and like when you get stocks like this where the opinion is very negative, it's kind of like how I like to trade Tesla. I like to trade Tesla in those spite selling troughs that it gets in, because we know how strongly it can rip off of there because it's not really expected. And Tesla's one of those stocks that's always going to be, even before all of the government efficiency and Elon with Trump, it always had two very big factions. It had I'm going to short Tesla to zero, and Tesla's going to go to $1 billion and be the most important company that's ever existed in the universe. And those were the two factions of Tesla, and I think those still continue to be. And it leads to these wilder price swings in the stock. And so when you get in these areas where people are super pessimistic on it, it really tends to rip. Even if the good news isn't that good, it's just less bad. That's all you really need to see stocks like that rip. And I really think, even though Roblox doesn't have the political animosity baked into it, it still is one of those names where it's like everybody's already written it off and left it for dead 3 years ago. And I don't think a lot of folks are really paying attention to it as much as they should be, because like you said, when we go through periods of volatility in the market like this, I think one of the most important things you can do, whether you're a longer term investor or a trader, is to get in there and don't back away from those big red days. Don't just totally shut down and say, I don't want to look at the market. That's when you want to dig into the market and see what's down less. What are the names that are hanging in there? What are the stocks that are, like you said, consistently outperforming? It doesn't mean they're going up. It means they're hanging on to key levels better than the rest of the market. It means they look better than the previous market leaders. It might mean that they're a little bit green, or they're break even on a big red day. Stuff like that's really important information. You need to start building lists of those stocks, because those are your relative winners during a downtrend, and those can be your really big winners when the market gets going again. And like I said, we don't know when the market's going to get going again. We don't know if we're going to be able to get over this big hurdle right here at 550 in the SPY. We don't know if we're going to go retest those lows. So if you're building those lists and you're actively seeking out where those strong stocks could be and where those next market themes, those market leading themes could be, then you're doing yourself a huge service that a lot of other people aren't doing during these kind of periods of turmoil for the market, if you catch my drift.
Yep. Markets are moving. They're confused, but they're figuring it out. So
there's something.
Don't freak out. That's always the thing. Never freak out. This is just another thing. Another thing happens. The market figures it out, and over time we'll get there. But there will be some winners out of the gate here.
Well, I think what else is interesting about it is, you mentioned COVID earlier. I think COVID and tariffs are a lot alike, because you had a situation where, well, first of all, they happened around the same time of the year, so you have that sort of seasonality component baked in. But with COVID, the market was already a little too hot and starting to roll over a bit before people really started selling. Okay, so the market already needed to correct before we had the big COVID scare that grappled, people's imaginations. People knew about COVID before the market crashed. It's just that everybody collectively decided to be very afraid of it at the same time, and we probably overreacted to the threat of it just because we didn't know what we know today about it. And so it's very similar with tariffs, where it's not so much the fact that all of a sudden these tariffs came out of nowhere. We knew it was coming, and then we're probably overreacting to the information that we're getting because we don't know how it's all going to shake out at the end. And it comes down to how, the market hates this uncertainty. And I know, what did the Sen said something really funny. I thought it was really funny earlier today. He said something about what strategic uncertainty. Is that how he described? It was just a very funny phrase to me. He's talking about and obviously he's the guy who's most in tune with how the economics in the markets work, around this whole tariff situation.
Yeah, if you want to know who's speaking the truth, it's the same thing that Jerome Powell did for 2 years. They told you what they were going to do. And then at some point in time, he kind of got a little loose. But now Besant is doing that. He's the guy. He's just coming out and saying what's happening. Strategic uncertainty means, and he said this in weeks past, they don't care about short-term Wall Street. They care about short-term Main Street and long-term Main Street of getting these deals worked out. So
For better or for worse, what he's saying is we're going to let the market react how it reacts because we want to have that uncertainty when we're in the negotiation process. We don't want to show we don't want to show our hand. We don't want to, and he obviously wasn't commenting too much on who he's negotiating with or how those negotiations are going. And I understand why he's not doing that and why the market might not like the fact that he doesn't have a lot of clarity to provide in those individual situations. But at the same time, he understands that like we're going to have this rough patch. And if they've decided that the tariff path is what they're going to go down, and that's the reality, that's the reality. I don't care one way or another. I know that's the situation that we're in right now. And he's telling us that like, okay, we might have some bumps in the road, but that's all part of how this is going to have to work out. If you're negotiating this, which he thinks is going to be a major change to the economy, then you're going to have these periods where the market doesn't respond favorably to you, and that's all part of the process. So we're just going to have to deal with it, that as best we can. And one of the ways we've done that at the trading desk has been just compressing our time frames, because one of the worst things you can do is get stuck in the middle. And I've talked about this a lot on calls, and I've written about it in Truth and Trends and in the chat. But we get in these situations where when the market's in flux, you can't really stick to your old swing trading time frame, because you're going to be in a situation where you're not taking gains quick enough. Okay. If you're in a market like this, then you can find these extreme lows, or when the market's acting up, and you can add shares to longer term positions. You can find stocks that you want to buy that you think are going to be higher a year from now, 2 years from now. You can build up that portfolio. You can also trade things very quickly. I call them quick hits. We do these quick hit trades where, we're just trying to get what we can get, just a few days or whatever it is. If the market is pushing, we're going to try to grab that slice as much as we can and then get the hell out of the way. Because if we don't, what's going to happen is we're going to get stuck in this, and we're going to buy here. The market's going to go up a little bit, and then it's going to go back to break even, and maybe we're going to take a small loss, maybe worse. You just can't let things sit, because in a favorable market, in a market like we saw back in November and early December, and then in January and February, after it had that little holiday temper tantrum, you didn't really have to do much. You could grab a stock and you could let it ride. You didn't have to worry about like, oh, it's up 5% today. Let's see where it's at on Friday. You could get away with that stuff because it was a much more favorable condition where everything was kind of just melting higher. Now that's not the case. So you really have to, nail down your time frame and say, okay, like with Rocket Lab, we had the RKLB trade. The move doesn't even show up on the chart until I zoom in, because we were just taking whatever we could get from the stock, because this is one of those names that I thought could really move after breaking out right here, and it did. It gave us a little bit of a breakout, but it's stalled right now. As you can see, it could still go higher. I'm not saying it couldn't, but this isn't the kind of market where I'm just going to wait around. We bought weeklies on this one because, again, I just wanted to see what we could get, over the weekend. We had this nice move right here that we bought into when it was pushing above 21. And then we sold it here as best we could on Monday on that move higher. It popped a little bit higher at the open and then chilled out a little bit. But I mean, this was it. These 3 candles. That was all we were going for right there. And it could have been a break-even trade. It could have been a small loss, but I knew we weren't going to take a huge loss on something like that, because it was just in, out. Let's see what we can get done. And that's how you have to kind of operate, in these uncertain times.
Yeah, why don't we look at a couple of other ones? Because you had 44% on Rocket Labs. You had 2 different closeouts on the Silver Junior ETF. You had 95% on Marathon, and you had a 28% winner on Nike. And then before that, if you go back a little bit, you had ASTS, a nice gain there. Any of those that I just mentioned that would be decent to run through?
Yeah, I mean, it was the same thing. And I don't have the exact entries and exits.
I can give them to you, dude. I'm ready.
So
we got Marathon. All right, so Marathon, you were in April 11th and then out April 14th. 3 days, 95%.
Yeah, so we were right here on this day. And when did we get out?
You got in on 4/11.
Yeah, okay.
You got out on 4/14.
Oh, okay. So it was just over the weekend. It was over the weekend. So yeah, this was a quick one. And okay, I remember the reason that we took this one is because, and by the way, I hate these stocks. Just I mean, I loved them back over the pandemic because they were great to trade. I hate them now because they stink. But the crypto miners were setting up really nicely and moving ahead of crypto. And the bet here was really simple. It was that, okay, it's trying to get out of this downtrend right here, which it's still trying to do, by the way. It looks pretty decent.
Yeah.
But it was trying to get out of this downtrend, and it was pushing higher on a day where the market wasn't looking too hot, and it was a clear standout. And I figured, okay, if we're pushing higher with the crypto miners on a Friday, we're probably going to get, well, not probably, we might get a decent crypto rally, a decent Bitcoin rally over the weekend, and we can sell into that on Monday. And that's exactly what we ended up getting. Again, there was no guarantees with this, but that's how I saw it shaping up. We were able to get out. I mean, we didn't get out here. We got out much higher in the morning, in the 13s, I think, for this trade, which was a quick double. The Friday to Monday double. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything more in a market like this because, again, it's all about putting in the time and mapping out these unusual moves and where the relative strength is in the markets. So we had a little bit of relative strength in Mara, but if you looked at Bitcoin at the time, Bitcoin was also firming up while the market was very much in flux. And so we've been talking a lot, over here about how is Bitcoin maybe turning into the mature type of safety trade that all of the crypto people have always wanted it to be, that it hasn't been. Because I could have sworn over the past 5, 6, 7, however many years, Bitcoin has just been a tech trade. It's pretty much held into hands with tech growth and speculative tech. And when Bitcoin is higher, those stocks are higher. When those stocks are down, Bitcoin is down. In 2022, Bitcoin was down lockstep with the market the entire way, all year. And then all of a sudden, this year, it's kind of split. I don't know if that relationship's going to hold or if it's going to come right back and be more correlated with the NASDAQ. But as you can see here, Bitcoin broke back above the 90s and is actually holding really well in this mid 90s range right here. Bitcoin looks damn good compared to a lot of other stuff out there. And I'm still like, I still have my Bitcoin traders in my back pocket that I'm watching, because if this resolves higher from here, and if we start going toward 100, I think that, the obvious ones, I think Coinbase will be in play. I think MSTR will be in play, because look, MSTR looks great. And I know this is just basically a Bitcoin chart. I get it.
Yeah.
But this looks great. The crypto miners, they might be in play. They might not be, depending upon where they are in earnings and how bad those earnings look for them. Robinhood will be in play. So you have
BitX. If you just want the price of Bitcoin, you go BitX. That's a leveraged Bitcoin price one.
That's a great one. That's a great trader. Not a long term.
Don't hold it. Yep.
But yeah, so you have all of these. Tradable vehicles to go along with a theme like that, And so when I sit here and I'm watching, like, okay, Bitcoin's been outperforming crypto, it's been outperforming the market, it's cleared this level here where things got really crazy back in early March, where it was up 10%, down 10%, over a matter of 24 hours. If we can get back over this level right here, man, and get back over 100, maybe Bitcoin is a big summer winner and outperforms while we sit around in the summer doldrums. That would be great. I would love that, because we have all those available vehicles to trade it with. So, and also another one, this is an Enrique special, but like, what about GameStop? That's a Bitcoin play now, and it's firming up too. So this is a very interesting play as well, especially since you have these earnings here that were on the 25th, and it's really been getting its act together after this crazy earnings reaction that it had. So there's a lot of slack in this chart, obviously, but at the same time, it's building back on this side. Maybe this is going to be $35 sooner rather than later. If it starts getting up there, then and gets some more attention, maybe this is something we could trade too, as far as an options play. So there's lots of stuff we can have in our back pocket. That even if Nvidia is not doing great, we have other things we can trade heading into sell in May and go away.
Yeah. And I'll give you kudos, Gunnar, because you said something earlier about that Mara trade. You were saying, hey, there's no guarantees in a market like this. It was almost like the tone was kind of like, we got lucky. You said you couldn't ask for more. But really, like the way that you're talking and the way that I learned from you, you shouldn't ask for more in today's market. If you get 100% gain in a day, you take it. because that's the type of market we're in. And I'm not saying that's not always, because in 2021, late 2020, 2021, maybe you don't take it because the market just keeps giving. In a market like this,
Yeah.
a professional like Gunner and the way that you're sort of ebbing and flowing or ducking and weaving with the market, that's the exact right mentality. And that's why you're getting these quick hits. Quick hits are different than these longer term, big percentage gains. So you're doing a really good job in a tough market.
Well, we can juxtapose that with ASTS because it was a totally different strategy we used with this one because the market was more favorable. Stocks were screaming higher. Let's pretend like we didn't know about all this nonsense. But stocks were screaming higher in January, February, and ASTS was a hot name, obviously. I mean, this thing roared from 250 up to the 30s. That's a massive move. And the fact that it didn't give it all back was a clue that there was something going on here. Really orderly consolidation. It snuck higher a couple times and looked like it might want to break out, but we caught it right here. I think we caught it on the 4th or the 5th.
Yep, 4th.
So we caught it on the 4th right here. So this is when we bought our calls, and the market just rewarded us big time for this. And we ended up with, like a gain in the 260s, maybe 260%.
248% according to this website that I'm on. That's Paradigm.
So yeah, we make like 250-ish% on the stock. On the option, on the calls that we bought. I sold half of them because I was going to let the other half ride, because I figured if this thing's still going to go and the market's still favorable, why not hang on to those? And we ended up having to bounce out of them when the environment started to change. So I think we had, I don't know what the other gain was we booked, but it was
you made
the first one.
248% in 6 days on the first half, and then you made 162% in 16 days on the second half. So you waited another 10 days, but the market started getting choppier. So you said, hey, we got a gain. Let's get out of here.
Let's get out. Let's take the second half of it. Like, and in hindsight, obviously the move would have been to sell it right away, but we didn't know that the market was changing just yet. We were just getting the evidence that was coming in that, like, hey, this run is maybe long in the tooth, and we're going to see some lower prices. We need to get out of the way. And so we did. We got out of the way.
Trump was busy signing executive orders. He wasn't talking tariffs yet. But after the first 14 days or whatever, then he started. That's when the market got, a little bit wonky.
Yeah, and so we recognize that, and that's what it's all about. It's all about like understanding the environment that you're in. We were in a much more accommodating environment for breakouts, obviously. And this chart doesn't show it because this is kind of an oddball chart. But if we go back to just the NASDAQ, October, November, early December, very accommodating market, and it really doesn't show it January, February, but like there was a lot of really good looking trades that happened in January, February, and they were just kind of below the surface while the mags were all consolidating and kind of bullying the market. But yeah, this is where things started to change, obviously. And then the break below the 200-day confirmed it. And, now we understand where we are. Nothing, we like to say in the technical world, nothing good happens below the 200-day moving average. This is the period where you can't trust breakouts to extend to the upside. You expect a little bit more volatility, so that's just the environment that we're in, and that's the environment that we're dealing with, which is why we've adjusted. Oh, Holly's asking about Roblox. I haven't sold. I'm going to sell Roblox tomorrow. I sold Rocket Lab earlier this week, but Roblox we're gonna sell that position tomorrow because they report Thursday morning. And you can
there was an old Roblox play from last year that you guys were in and out of, but this is there's one still open, Holly.
So yeah, I mean, like we're down a little bit today. Maybe we'll float a little bit, and we'll be able to get out in the 66s or something like that. So that's what I'm looking at for Roblox. I don't want to hold it over earnings. I mean, like it might be fine, but I don't feel like taking that type of risk in this market, especially when Roblox was already nice enough to like come back from the dead. Because I thought we were sunk on Uber and Roblox since we got caught in that big downdraft and there was really nothing we could do. It all happens so fast, and then you're stuck. And you're out of striking range for those options to really work for you, and then it comes back to life like this. So being able to book like a break even / like small gain on this and that's a huge win. Like this is a bigger, in my mind, and I know this is going to sound maybe crazy to you, Matt, or maybe to some of you guys on the call here, but in my mind, this is a much more exciting gain to book, even if it's like low double digits than ASTS. I know ASTS was a big gain, but this is one of those trades where this could have been a lot worse, and we were patient and we let it do its thing. We recognized the relative strength in it, and we let it ride just to see if it would come back to life, and it did. And the fact that we're able to turn basically what was 100% loss into a small gain, those type of trades like this are a gift, and we shouldn't ignore that, in my opinion.
And I'll go out on a limb, and you've got an Uber trade open. I'm going to go out on a limb because they announce earnings next Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
That's luckily, we might get a little run up in between now and next Wednesday.
Yeah, maybe.
Riverboat gamblers like myself will be taking some looks at some Uber positions.
So are you going to
solely for earnings?
Yeah, but what's your thought on it though? Is it going to be bullish? Are you going to be
yeah. Well, are you kidding me? I'm like Uber's #1 fan.
Okay.
I love Uber. I think they're just in the middle of this Tesla, Waymo, Google.
Yeah.
They're in the middle of all of it, and they're gonna win somehow. They've got technology, they've got driverless, they've got Uber Eats, they've got all these different little things happening. So
Enrique calls it the ultimate TAM play, total addressable market. So
who am I to disagree with Enrique? Because that dude is smart.
Yeah.
So I agree with him. And the chart looks good. Again, that's what's giving me some hype, right? I'm like, this thing seems like it's bucking some trends. Now, again, don't anyone at home take my, don't put the house on earnings in a market like this. God bless it. But I just like it. And if you want to have some fun, like in a horse betting, hey, Kentucky Derby's this Saturday, so let's talk horse betting, right? Like if you're having a fun in a horse betting atmosphere type way, why not take some calls out for Uber upside? Like that's fun.
Oh, and since you're my horse racing expert, since I don't really watch horses, what's the best bet for this weekend on the Kentucky?
I'm not happy about this, Gunner, because I have not looked at the field because they don't do the gates until Wednesday, and there's 20 horses in this race. It's like horses running on top of horses, and the gates matter. So if your horse is at gate 20 versus 1 versus 10, so I don't look, and I don't start formulating until then. So
I do.
If anyone's got a horse, just throw it there in the chat. Clearly, we can turn this whole thing into horse racing.
If I'm going to bet on horse racing, first of all, it's going to be not much money because I don't know anything about it, and it's just for fun. And second of all, I go by the name only. That's the only information I need is how cool the name is of the horse. You know?
The horse that I made my best horse race bet ever on was Rich Strike. That's a good name.
How can you bet against Rich Strike?
It's a hot name. All right. Do you want to cover some tickers? Do you want to cover gold, silver? What do we got? I can go either way.
We can talk briefly about gold and silver. And my position on gold and silver really hasn't changed that much. I think it's overbought here, but I don't think it's in a bad spot. Like I wouldn't buy gold. I wouldn't buy it right now because I think you can get it at a better price once it cools off a little bit because it's so stretched. You can see the 200-day moving average down here. That's a lot of white space between here and price. So I would wait and see how it consolidates because we can see it kind of flamed out here. That's very typical looking exhaustion on the 22nd where you have this huge run. I mean, this was massive. This one from 2,900 all the way up above 34. And then you had on Tuesday where it rallied almost to 3,500 and then settled red on the day. Very typical exhaustion type of move in the short term where you're probably going to see it reset. And that's kind of what it's doing, but it's very orderly and it hasn't given back a lot. If you had shown me just the chart like this, back when that exhaustion candle popped up, I would say that we're probably going to come down here to 3,100 to 3,000 rather than later. It hasn't yet, so that's interesting. Silver looks good too. I'm not in any rush to buy these right now is the thing, because I know they're going to set up again for me at some point. And, we've had a lot of luck. Like you said, we've had a lot of really good trades on SILJ recently and on GDX. We know how to trade these. And
what's GDX looking like?
GDX doesn't look too bad, honestly. Like it looks a lot like gold futures, and I'm very surprised that it's holding up as well as it is. I think that probably tells us that we're going to be higher months from now.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the gold trade is really taking off. I still stand by like the idea that the new gold bull market started in 2019. It was interrupted by COVID, and that sort of threw it for a loop. And it's still now just sort of getting its legs and extending from there.
Hmm.
So I do think we'll be higher. It's just a matter of like how we consolidate from here. And again, I'm talking strategically, like how do we set up a trade? For me, I look at a chart of GDX like this and I say, I like the miners. I wouldn't mind hanging on to them and owning them right here. This isn't a spot I want to add just yet. I want to see like how this bases out. Do we retest 46? Do we have to come and retest a little bit lower? Does the moving average have to catch back up? It's a great chart. I'm just waiting and biding my time at this point. I think gold miners are going to be in play. Like it's like I said about Uber. Maybe this isn't the trade that kills it for us for Uber, but I think Uber is going to give us a lot of good looks this year. I think gold's going to give us a lot of good looks, gold, silver. I think commodities in general are going to give us good looks this year. Maybe over the summer. Maybe we have a summer where the stock market gets stuck in the mud, because even if you go back to like what we were talking about with comparing the tariff market to the COVID market, even the COVID market took months and it took until the summer to get it back to those all-time highs. And that was with, the Fed backstop and stimulus and, everything else. So we could be in a situation where the market's still fighting to get back its sea legs in June, July, August, and commodities are ripping. It's entirely possible. And, we have commodity summer.
Yeah. And if you're Trump and Bessent and all the stuff you've said and what you really want long term, like a rip roaring market right now doesn't really help you. Like,
No,
say the
no.
market just ripped higher from here, that doesn't really help them because Trump, deep down, he said this very obviously. He wants a cheap dollar and he wants low interest rates.
Yeah.
Like, if the market starts ripping from here, and this is the thing, I think they it seems like they know what they're doing. Again, I say that lightly, but like it seems like they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Trump and Bissett can say things and the market will move because of it. So
Yeah.
if they come in, if the market starts getting a little too heavy, they could come in and say, hey, 180% on China. We
Right.
crunch some numbers. We wouldn't do 180. Market's going to be like, oh, what's happening? And it'll pull back. And then after a while, that's going to get Jerome Powell to cut more than he normally would. That's the whole game here. They want to damage China a little bit. They want to cut rates. Like it's playing out pretty interestingly and planned. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. And like I think like their main issue right now is, and the reason the market is upset maybe isn't as much tariffs as it is just the communication hasn't been as good. There's too many contradictory statements happening right now for the market to stabilize. It's still kind of hanging on every word. So we'll see where it comes from. And again, like like I said, like I think the main thing this week is we're right back to the starting line here, and
Yep.
how we react from here. I think it'll be quick. If it's downside, it's going to be quick probably. How many days have we had? We haven't gone down since last Monday, and we're just sneaking up to this spooky area on the SPY right here. So we'll see how things go from here. But let's I'm scrolling up through the chat.
I got them. I'm ready.
Oh, you already have them. Okay.
I
Well,
got tickers. They're locked and loaded, dude. And the first ones are coming from Holly. Holly just dropped some info in the chat. She said she almost was going to be a jockey at some point. I don't even know if that's true, but I like that idea. Like, I'd love riding on a thoroughbred. That'd be crazy, dude. Gunner's too tall.
imagine if I was a
I'd rather see you
Get on my
race.
horse.
I'd rather see you like race a horse or something, like go on foot. Like you guys just line it up. All right, Holly has 4 tickers. We'll see if we can get these. If we get all of them, or if you want to pick some of them, it's Credo, CRDO, and
Okay.
then
Credo
start
doesn't
there.
Credo doesn't look half bad. Like
Yeah,
it's gonna have to get back over its 200 day. But like I mean, like it suffered earlier in so this was like the early part of the market turning over right here in late February. But from March onward, it hasn't really been that bad. I mean, yeah, it's not great, but I mean, this could be worse. I think it's a matter of like if it can get back over, like we have this little line right here. That's about right. I think like 49.50. I think that's when I would get more excited about it. If you like it longer term, then you like it right here because you got a nice higher low so far from back here in Q3 of last year. So I think it's fine. This is one of those stocks that probably just got too hot in the previous cycle and it needed to reset. We've seen a lot of those. Like what's another? I mean, like was Rocket Lab really a total reset? No. So this one did reset 30 to 16, 15. So it got cut in half. It doesn't look as dramatic because of the big run up right here, but that's what happens when you have these big runners. You're going to have 50, 60%, 60% drawdowns, on those big, strong trends, because that's just the market keeping you honest. You're never going to see a stock that rips higher like a Rocket Lab or a Credo does without it going down and getting cut in half again. It's never going to happen because you got to scare out the weak hands and then it's got to set back up and go. And, you go back and look at any stock, look at Amazon, look at Robinhood, look at Robinhood. There's been multiple major drawdowns in this stock, on this rocky road back to relevancy from, trading for $7-8 back in 2023. It goes up and then people think, oh, that was it. It's over. It went from 8 to 13. And then look what it did, back to 10, and then look what happens afterward. Maybe that's the situation with something like Credo, So that's how I would look at something like this. And let's get that back up to here. So yeah, very similar type situation right here.
All right, let's rapid fire some of these. CRVS.
CRVS.
I don't know that one offhand, but we're going to find out. Corvus Pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, man. It feels like biotech pharma can't get off the mat.
Yeah.
This sector has just been crushed. And this is one of the ones. I mean, it's very similar to what we were talking about where there was a huge run up. I don't know the story behind this one. But I think it needs more work. Like, I don't know where it's going to get out of this. Like, if I go to the second peak right here and I start doing this, is it here? Is it here? Is that what we're looking at? We're still in a downtrend. If it can get back up here, and I would like it more above $5, really.
Yeah.
I would like it down here. And I know people don't like it when I say that, but it's one of those things where, where I look at this and I say, I want to buy it at higher prices, not lower prices, because I just don't trust it down here.
Yeah. What about CMG? Old Faithful.
I haven't looked at this chart in a while, but I bet you it doesn't look good. That's my bet. Yeah, I don't like it. Maybe if you like it longer term, but I feel like all these stocks are getting hit. Because these were world beaters back in early 2024, and I feel like something's changed in the market where like casual dining, fast, whatever you want to call it, has gotten hit. I think all the Cavas are down, like all that stuff. Like they all kind of look the same. These things flamed out in a big way, and I want to see them set up again. Like what is it? Sweet Green looks bad. Sweet Green looks like the worst of all of them. I think Bros is the one that looks the best probably out of these. I was looking at that the other day. It's not a great chart, but it's above its 200-day, and this thing was screaming higher up until the market started getting weak in late February, and it's gone from 86 to 60. Well, it was even lower. It was in the 40s, but it bounced off its 200-day, and it might set up again. This might just be a big messy reset for this stock, but not a lot of these stocks look really good in the short term, and I'm kind of, I've kind of moved on to other ideas.
Food coma. That's the headline.
Maybe that's the situation. I don't know.
All right, I think this one was from last year as a recommendation somewhere in Paradigm Land. Copen, COPN. Take a look at that one. That one was sort of down. Or sorry, KOPN.
KOPN.
Yeah, that one's been down and out, but it's got a little bit.
It's not bad. So this is a tiny one, isn't it? Yeah, it's a 200 million company. So I think one of the issues with this might just be volume. It doesn't have enough volume. Because you can see how janky the chart is. It's all over the place. And we have earnings that were reported back here in April, and then it says what earnings estimated in Wednesday, May 7th. That doesn't make any sense. So something's off with how TradingView sees earnings coming up. I mean, it's nice that this thing is off the lows right here, but this is a wild stock. This is all over the place. I would have trouble trading something like this. I feel like if you believe in the story for something, or you believe in the fundamentals or whatever they may be, and it says it's a semiconductor, then maybe it's a buy a small position and hold it, because I would have trouble like trying to figure out trading these swings on
Mhm.
something like this. It's kind of like how we talked about. I've talked about this before. How I feel like PLTR is a better buy and hold than a trading stock. Um, I mean, it's been a really great just buy any dip, obviously, and that might not be true forever, but at the same time, this has been a lot easier to just, put in your back pocket than try to trade breakouts in it. So
Yeah, absolutely. All right. John had TLT. Let's take a look at that one. See if that thing can recover itself. That's the 20-year treasury, 20
TLT,
plus year. Yeah, TLT.
yeah, man.
This is a treasury
Okay.
one.
Well,
It,
I mean, this is obviously this is a tariff situation right here. You know what
yeah,
I mean? So
tariff
I
and
mean,
dollar special.
so this is a mess. It looked like it looked like yields were gonna drop right here, right? This looked like it, and then look, it totally failed, and now it's bouncing again. I don't know, man. I can't make heads or tails of this. It's a mess,
Yeah.
and maybe it stays a mess until we have a clearer picture of cuts and tariffs and all that moving
All right.
forward.
Few more. Brian had INOD.
INOD.
Yeah, INOD. Data. It was looking pretty decent.
This is intriguing to me because you have a situation here where obviously this is taken a huge breakout and really extended it. So you go down here to May of last year, a year ago, and you have a massive breakout on earnings. Something happened here, and it was up 55% on the day. And look at how it didn't give any of that back. That's an earnings drift for the ages right there. When you're up 50% plus on a day and you just keep rolling, that's great. It didn't, it obviously had
And
to
look at the next or two more. Two more. It did the
right.
same thing.
So it had to digest those gains, which it took it a while to do, which is totally normal. And then you had another massive earnings gap right here, was up 75%. I don't know what this company does, but I like the looks of the chart. And then obviously it's digesting that move right there too. This was the only look at this. Everybody was hoping that it would do it a third time right here on February 20th. And that was right when the market was topping out. So it started to break out and then it failed. And some people got trapped, I bet. But look, it hasn't even filled this gap from this last earnings announcement right here. This is still an open window, but it has done a really good job of riding its 200-day, and then the momentum is obviously reset in this name. I would like this a lot for a trade, or maybe like I don't know if you get stuck in something like this if this really trades with the overall market, but if it gets above $40, I really like it. But I think it's nice. I mean, like, it's not a big company. It's $1 billion stock. Data processing.
Yeah, it's
Technology.
AI. It's an AI company that actually looks pretty
Yeah.
close.
Like I don't hate it. I really don't hate it at all.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm not super familiar with the company, but like this is one of those charts that you want to come back to every now and then just to see what it's up to, because that's not a bad look.
All right, Brian had another one, BTBT. That's Bit Digital.
BT. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I think I
that
know
one's been
this
around.
one.
I've got some of that, but I closed my eyes.
It says next earnings report today, but how's that possible when it just reported here?
Yeah, it's probably they can't keep track of these little companies or something.
It's going down too much. It needs to go up more. How about that for analysis? I don't like how it's gone down so much.
Too many sellers.
Yeah, too many sellers
You
here.
need more
Stop
buyers on the
selling.
stock.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's better options out there. Like I don't know the whole story with BTBT. I remember it being okay. So Brian says it owns Bitcoin, does mining. It's a microcap.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Bitcoin. I believe that's in. I think Chris Cimarelli, he's the one that put me on to it. James Altucher, Chris Cimarelli, those guys.
Okay.
I own BTBT. I think it's just like a little Bitcoin miner holder AI.
It might be a baby with the bathwater situation. I don't know, but like all the miners are just not looking great. Like what's Riot doing? Yeah, I mean like I feel like you can take them for like a rubber band type trade, if you really want to, but I would want something with a little more volume. But
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't look great in my opinion. And we'll have to see like with Bitcoin kind of decoupling for the time being, and the crypto miners dealing with their own issues. I feel like a lot of that's in flux, And if I want to trade crypto via equities, that I'm going to be looking at Hood Coin, you know, BITX, like you were talking about, like those other vehicles. And, they're just, I feel like
Yeah.
they move a lot better. At least they do right now. So that's how I see it. Oh, IONQ is another one somebody I tossed in earlier that I forgot.
I got one more for you too, once you
This
get
is
done.
this is another one. See, like, look, this is really similar to the INOD that we were talking about. Um, we have a situation where it needed to reset, and it did. It respected its 200-day moving average, which is pretty impressive. It's got earnings coming up next week,
And this is quantum. This
and
is
it's
like a
quantum.
Rigetti, dude. This is
Yeah, like rigatoni. But it's kind of the same idea where, like, look at Rigetti. Like, and I know we talked.
these quantum stocks terrify me with all that air underneath them, by the
Well,
way.
they should. They're scary, but that's what also makes them good opportunities too, I think, is because you have a situation where these things, I mean, like these are incredible runs that we saw going from, like a few pennies to $20. I mean, you don't see
It's
that very often.
terrifying.
But the fact that it's like consolidated so orderly, yes, it's given back a lot, but it's way above its 200-day right here. I mean, I would if you showed me this right here when it was going down. I think I talked about this too earlier this year. I was like,
Yeah,
this
it'd
will
be going back to $2.
this is going back $2, and it hasn't. And so there's definitely buyers propping this thing up. It's just a matter of, are they going to stay aggressive, and can they make it through these earnings? Earnings are Monday the 12th, so not next week, week after. I don't know if I'd want to play this ahead of earnings, but like at the same time, it's very impressive that this has not totally fallen apart. And that
What is Rigetti going to talk about in earnings that's positive other than just stories? They'll be like, hey, I'm going to put these spreadsheets to the side, but I'd like to tell you all a tale.
Hey, hey, look at this. I mean, it's right back to, I guess it was a SPAC.
Yeah, there was a SPAC,
It's
duh.
right back to SPAC land. I don't know, man. I mean, like,
Rigetti and IonQ, they're both SPACs, right?
I don't know. Like, watch,
Oh,
watch,
God.
watch Rigetti go to like $50 or something, and must be like, oops.
I guess if the market's like me, I'm staying away from this thing, you know? So if it's holding up and people are staying away from it, then maybe it's got some rubber band potential upward.
I
Who
think
knows?
I think maybe
Scary though.
that's bullish news that you're not putting your stink all over this trade. So the people that own it, they can, they can ride it
All right, I
higher.
got one more. I got one more from Steve-O. Hack. HACK. That's the
Yeah. So,
cyber.
look, when we're talking about like who are going to be the leaders, and I know Steve-O well, and I know that he is very in tune with these companies right here on a fundamental level. Um, Look at how this has recovered compared to the Nasdaq or compared to the S&P. It's back above its 200-day. It looks like um, it's breaking out of whatever this downtrend was right here. Okay. Like it looks like that's a pretty decent breakout. It might need to retrace. It might need to come back down into the 70s. But look at how well these stocks have held up compared to a lot of the other stuff. Look at how well these have held up compared to semiconductors, compared to the mags. This is impressive. This snapback here. And these could be market leaders. And yeah, like Steve says, cybersecurity, it's like one of those things where it's like, when are we going to have a bear market and people not needing cybersecurity? It's not going to happen, right? I mean, these are essential companies in this group right here. And I think what is it? Not Crew, Crowd. CrowdStrike's a good one. I mean, look at this stock. That looks even better. You know what I mean? So like you have some good looking charts in this group right here. This one might be a little short term extended for a trade. Maybe we want to see a retracement to 400 or something like that. But yeah, like this is like one of those groups where it's like, okay, you could be looking at new market leaders, in the hack group, in your cybersecurity group, going forward, because they're obviously doing better than the broad market right now.
Yeah, I like it. Steve-O, good pick there. And good work. He said he made 700% on Rigetti last year. Boom.
Can't
Good
argue with
work.
that. Can't
All
argue
right.
with
Well, we officially have 1 minute left. Gunner, we've talked about a lot of things. One, we don't know if we're at the end of the storm and it's calm now, or if we're in the hurricane, in
Yep.
the eye of the hurricane. We covered a bunch of possible rotation plays, next top trades or whatever. And the one thing that I need to say again, because if I don't get on enough of these calls, and just to say it, it's like you guys have been doing a really good job in this market with the right type of strategy, the right type of trades at the right time, doing the right money management, that kind of stuff. So good work there. Otherwise, what's the last word? What's everyone need to know in between now and the next top trades?
Well, like I said, I think the big theme today, it's twofold. It's SPY 550 back to the scene of the crime, eye of the hurricane, or calm after the storm. We'll see. And then back to the earnings here. I think everybody is going to be waiting for somebody to slip up and say something on these earnings calls. It could be positive, it could be negative, but I think everybody's looking for some sort of downside. Maybe that'll be a catalyst. Maybe we're going to be in a situation where everybody's bearish and thinking that, like, oh, we're not going to get any positive news from these, big multinationals that are reporting this week, and we actually get the opposite. Maybe Amazon comes out and says, "Oh no, we're fine. Don't worry about us." Or Microsoft and Meta come out swinging with some really good numbers and some really good guidance. It's possible. I'm not betting on those outcomes, but I think we need to keep an open mind to the possibility that maybe those companies don't see things as bearishly as the financial media does. And if that's the case, I think that could be a positive catalyst. Or maybe we're in a situation where we just need to rest here and the market needs to, shake some people out. We will see. But this is a pretty decent, quiet day. This is 2 quiet days in a row right now for the market. I mean, we finished at break even yesterday. We're about near break even today. I say enjoy it. I mean, we just got put through the ringer with these big candles. Enjoy some tiny candles this week, and we'll see what earnings brings.
Awesome. Gunnar, as always, great work. Big paradigm housekeeping note. If you happen to be following Jim Rickards and you're not on his Insider Intel program service, he's got a call at 2 p.m. today. He's got a way you can get a free new chapter of his book, The New Case for Gold. So if you're interested in some Trump movements, what's happening in America, unlocking some resources, tune in at 2 p.m. for that one. But otherwise, next week, 11 a.m., top trades. Thanks, Gunnar. It's good to see you. Everyone go eat lunch.
All right. Thanks for coming on, Matt. Appreciate it.
See you, man.